Okay, well, we're off to another book review. This time, it's another audio book, and it's called The Beast of Barcroft by Bill Swigart. And bear with me, I just got some new video equipment, and I'm trying to work out. I don't know what my sound is going to be like. I got a new mic and some other stuff, and the lighting is kind of jacked up, so I don't know as far as the quality, what we're going to get here on this video. So I'm working on that. Like I said, The Beast of Barcroft. This is a new series that I just started. Since the Lucifer's Hammer review, there were several books that I needed to get to that I've actually read since then that I need to get reviews on, but I had since also started this new series. I just finished the first one, and I want to go ahead. I finished it. I want to go ahead and get the review in while it's fresh in my mind. So, and also, like I said in the last one, I'm going to try and go through my review outline real quick and get right into the review and make it as short and as well done as possible. So, as far as my outline goes, premise, this is based on 5 stars. I'm gonna rate the premise of the book. I'm gonna rate the writing. I'm gonna rate the characters and character development. I'm gonna rate the journey or the pace of the book and the ending, and then I'll do an overall rating for the book. So there's our outline. The Beast of Barcroft by Bill Swigart. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly or not. It's I actually just ran into this series on accident, and what it was, I found the second book in this series, and it looked really interesting, and I wanted to read it, and then I found out that there was one book before it. So I went and checked it out, and it didn't look near as interesting, but I didn't want to get out of line, and that was this, The Beast of Barcroft. So I went ahead and did this one, and I'm actually reading right now the next one in the series, which is called The Northwoods. Now, be aware, I'm a sucker for creature features, or at least creature in the woods features. So anything to do with woodsmanship or outdoor setting, and maybe a Native American setting, and some kind of eerie story to do with that, you know. I'm kind of a sucker for those, so that's actually why I chose this book. Let's go on to the premise of the book. Ben McKenzie is the main character in this book. He moves to Washington, D.C., a Washington, D.C. suburb called Barcroft. When he moves in, he feels like he's made it. He's made it to the suburbs, and he has his place in the world or whatever. And he quickly finds out that his neighbor, their house is a vermin-infested eyesore. There's rats, there's all kind of animals and all this, and and all the neighborhood people are complaining about this neighbor. The problem is their complaint is that it's a public health issue, and it's a serious problem in the neighborhood. So as you get into the story, it's basically his dog is killed by a predator. He sees the predator. Some weird stuff's going on in the neighborhood with all these animals and all this stuff, and he begins to investigate. And he finds out that, or he's suspicious that there's something more going on than just basic predator in the neighborhood, like a wolf or whatever it might be, a coyote or a bear or something. So he begins to investigate, and with the help now, I forget, somehow he runs across or gets in touch with a curator at the Smithsonian National Zoo, and this crackpot dude that's a cryptozoologist. And so he kind of teams up with these people, and they begin to, in a nutshell, it's this Native American lore type monster. What it is a shapeshifter is what they find out, and I'm not big on mysticism and magic and all that. I don't care for that stuff at all. But a good scary story I do like. They start investigating this issue, and that's pretty much it. That's the gist of the entire story. They're tracking down this animal, and it's just kind of this eerie, supposedly eerie neighborhood situation where they're just trying to figure out what's going on and find that where this monster or demon or devil is originating from, and all that. So that's the gist of the story. I'm going to give it's a decent storyline. It's kind of average. I'm going to give it 3 stars for the synopsis, or the premise of the plot. I think it's worth. It's a good enough storyline, and I think it's actually been done quite a bit. But it's still, for me, it's an interesting storyline. 3 stars. Writing. Moving on to the writing. I think it was well written, but in places there were places in it that left me wanting more. When you go into this action scene and this suspenseful action scene, and you know, you're running and all these things are happening, and then it would just kind of end, and it would be over, and they would move on, and it would kind of left you hanging. I mean, it left you hanging as to the culmination of this intense scene, and that would just kind of stop. I don't know if that really makes sense, but I think there were just places that were kind of cut short. Maybe that's the best way to put that. There were scenes in the book that were cut short, and you moved on to the next whatever was going on, and left you wanting more. So the writing, I'm going to give a 3 stars. I think it was pretty decent. Nothing great, but it was decent writing. Not overly wordy. I think it was a true author that was writing this series. Understandable for the most part. I will say that they didn't go into real good character development, but that's further along. So 3 stars for writing. Characters and character development. I don't think the character development was really in depth. I think the characters were likable. I think they were likable, but they didn't go into a lot of backstory or anything for the characters. It was just okay. It was pretty decent. The journey and the pace of the story. Now, here's where it started to kind of go off for me, and this can kind of be tied in with the writing and the character development as well. But the journey, the pace of the story, the storyline didn't really go in much deep detail about the monster or the shapeshifters, what they were calling it, as far as the Native American lore goes. They just kind of pointed it out and just left it at that. And what was funny is that the characters, or that some of the characters in the book, that they kind of just, once they figured out what it was, they just kind of accepted it for what it was, and they weren't in awe. It wasn't this, oh my gosh, is that even possible? Or until later on in the book, they kind of went into a little bit of that. But for the most part, they just kind of, oh, it's a shapeshifter. Okay, well, what do we need to do type thing. So they weren't really, they weren't overly surprised when they found out what it was. In the end of the book, he started calling it a kushtaka. It wasn't called, they were calling it a shapeshifter, and then he got to calling it a demon, a devil towards the end, and then a kushtaka. And he didn't really get into any backstory or anything. There was no great explanation. There was no, that I can remember, there was no explanation of what a kushtaka is and how that fit in and why they went from calling it a shapeshifter. Maybe it's all one thing, I don't know. But they never, that was a confusing part for me in the writing, is they had several names for this monster, and I wasn't clear on, they were just the fact that they were just using several names, or they thought it was a shapeshifter. And then it turned at the end when he started calling it acoustica. Was there some point that he realized that it was something different than a shapeshifter? And what is acoustica? He never explained it. Again, maybe it's the same thing, but that was confusing to me. I found that to be confusing. Now, I'm just going to go ahead, and as far as the journey of the book, the pace, I think it was well, but I still think they left you hanging in spots. And occasionally it got into these parts that just kind of didn't fit in or jive really well with the story. And so just going back to I don't know if I rated character and character development, but I'm going to give that a 3-star. Actually, I'm going to give characters and character development a 2-star. I don't think it was that well done. The journey and the pace, I'll give 3 stars. I think it was done well enough, but there were places that kind of left me hanging. The ending of the story, I thought, was done well, I guess, other than the fact that at some point this guy takes a badge that was his father's badge. His father was a cop. All of a sudden, he's using this badge that has some kind of mystical powers or something. And there was just a little bit of backstory about his father, not much at all, but he had kept his father's badge and for some reason felt some kind of drawing or some kind of something leading him, or actually I don't even think I touched on that. There was some part about a badge, and then all of a sudden he's got this badge in his pocket. He had reached into his pocket and felt something poking him, and it was his dad's badge. I don't even think it explained why he had his dad's badge with him, so that was kind of odd for me. But in a nutshell, he ended up using his dad's badge to defeat, ward off something. It was odd. Let's just leave it there. That was another odd part, and that was towards the ending. It was decent other than that. So I don't know how that really tied into the story or why, and that was really disappointing for me because it left you with more questions that I think were necessary, or it left you with wondering what that was all about. So to wrap that ending up, though, we'll just say he left room for the next book. And I don't know if it has anything to do with this specific character or this specific demon, devil, whatever it is, monster. I think that's what it is because, spoiler here, the monster gets away. So, there's obvious room for the next book, and I think it's my understanding that the same characters and some others are in the next book. These or at least the ones that lived they move on to the next book. I don't know exactly how in depth they are in the book as far as what they're doing. I just started it, but some of them are in the next book. It's not overly scary, not overly eerie. There is some language in it, not a bunch. I want to give it 3 stars. I would say maybe 2.5 to 3 stars, but it's a good solid 3-star book if you like that kind of thing. But forewarning, it's not overly horrific. It's not a horror story. It's not going to keep you on the edge of your seat. At least it didn't me. I was left wanting a little more as far as that aspect of the book goes. And again, I don't know if I mentioned, this is the audio version of the Beast of Barcroft. It's an Audible book, so I don't have the actual copy of the book. The Audible version was 7 hours and 25 minutes. The release date was November 15, 2016. And now, as far as the Audible version, I don't know if the release date is for the Audible version or if it's the release date for the book itself. I'm not really sure how that works. The narration was done by Will Damron, and I think he does both books, 1 and 2. So for a quick recap on my ratings, The premise of the book, I gave a 3-star. The writing, I gave a 3-star. Characters and character development, I was kind of unsure about that. I'm going to give it a 2-star. The journey and the pace wasn't bad. I'll give it a 3-star. The ending was well enough. I actually was left wanting a little more from the ending. It wasn't terrible. I don't know if a 2-star is going to be considered terrible, but I'm going to give it 2 stars. Overall, I'm going to give the book a 3-star rating if you like that sort of read. It's a good, easy listen. No big, horrific, scary moments in the book. I was a little disappointed as far as that goes. I was left wanting more as far as the eerie level of you know, I bought this book because I wanted a good scare in the woods, if that makes sense. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. Let me know if the sound seems any different or better in this video. I know the lighting's kind of jacked up. I'm working on that. So stay tuned. I've got several books I'm going to try and catch up on, and I'm in the middle of book 2 on this series as well, so that's coming as well. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.